oh my god, we got to start panicking, the world is collapsing, the earth is dying, and things like that. So how do we collectively prepare ourselves to, face future chaotic events, during this transition period?
The only things to get ourselves out of this fear is really to, I call it, you lean in. What do I do with my life? I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my loved ones. What is life? And my aunt, like, she doesn't kill anything in her house, including cockroach. And I look at the cockroach and say, "You are so cute." And then you keep saying, "You're very cute. You're very cute. You're not gonna harm me." But actually, they really don't harm you, because if you put your hand close to it, they run away anyways.
Ryan, the other day I was watching a YouTube video on one of the older fires that we had, and like, the fireman was nonstop spraying water at the fire, and then the fire just wouldn't go off. And
Mm.
that shocked me, like that made me wonder whether or not there was something deeper in that. Like, why, like, theoretically in science, the fire is supposed to distinguish after you spray water on it for a while, but then it was still there and it was really strong as well. So what is your opinion? What is your take on this?
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I think the tragedy in Hong Kong, of the fire in Taipo, like, causing 150 plus life, as of today, right? And it is very, very strange in many ways. I would agree with you, right, from your observation, right? Like, yes, there, from a surface, there's a lot of mistake going on that, like, you can see it on the news, but deeper it is, we are moving into period 9 of the fire element, where fire is more prominent. It's a much stronger element. Take the leading role in everything that we do, right? And at this time, it just feels like that they really showing us, like, watch out, people, right? This is the beginning of it, right? And really be careful and what we do, like how we think, like. And I think that this big tragedy, in how I feel, is like a huge wake up call. All right, like, it's more like a awaken type of wake up call. It's not just a wake up call that, hey, what can we improve in the process? Yes, that definitely, there's a lot going on there, but it's also a wake up call if how we feel about our emotions, right? I think everyone take those, like, watching those scene over and over again, like watching the interviews of the survivors, right? And seeing how the firefighters and the response team, right? Have a lot, like, of emotion comes up, right? And all these emotions are information for us, right? And sometimes we just brush it away and turn it into anger, right? Or turn it into something, and just kind of like try to bring something external, where those emotions now is the best time to go inward, to kind of like untangle each emotion, and how does that emotion teach us about ourselves, about our values, our about thinking, our about how our view of the world, right? And how can we neutralize all of this, right? So I think that is how I see the much deeper message of this fire, and non-stop, like how it goes so fast and everything. I think that is very important, to use all this triggering emotion as our teachers, to learn about ourselves.
Yeah. I think this ties really well with like the initial concepts that we were trying to explore in this podcast, which is fear, right? Like a lot of people, they feel fearful whenever they watch these news happen. Like no matter if it's like environmental collapse or if it's something else breaking down, we can see so many changes are happening as we transition to 2026, and we're only really in the beginning of the year. So
Mhm.
could we just break down like what is fear in general and why we actually even like feel it?
That's a Big question, right? And it can take and it's a very important question, right? From a primal like human being, fear is very like we all have fears since we were young. Like, or even if you think about our ancestor,
Mhm.
right? Where does fear come from? When you're in the forest, right? When someone chase after us, right? And then or like a lion chase after us, right? We have fear for our life, and therefore, right, we react in a certain way. So we go kill the animals, right, to protect ourselves and protect our family, right? Again, that's the fear, the original fear, right? If you think
Mhm.
about it, it's come from
Like survival instincts.
survival, exactly. And the survival, why do we like have that survival instinct? Because we fear of death, right? And that fear, like now, like it kind of go deep into our system and our DNA, and translate to the modern world, where very rare, right? If most of us that live in the city, right, we won't really have lions chasing after us. Right? So then, what do we change our fear to? We fear the cockroach. We fear of the rat, like little animals actually, and insect. Somehow, the survival instinct, like built inside us, that become a a thing, even though it's not life threatening. You see why I'm getting there, right? So then, if you were to go one step further, then the fear, in a way, is become an illusion of something that actually does might not happen. Like the survival instinct is unnecessary because we are not dying, right? But then now we fear that someone's gonna scold us, like like on creation. Then I would actually categorize fear. If most of the time it's become this just an illusion. There's something playing in our head that we think it is life threatening, and therefore we fear, right? And if we can actually step back and it's like, wait a minute, why am I afraid, right? So why am I afraid of um, failing, let's say, right? The opposite of afraid of failing, there might be because I love something so much, right? Because I love my parents, so I don't want to disappoint them, so I'm afraid to fail. That is an example,
Mm.
right? So then if you really, and then you go down that path, and then say, oh, wait a minute, so actually I'm not afraid to fail. I actually, just because I love my parents, I want them to be happy, right? So there is certain things about fear that we can start to see what is going on and what is the true reason behind the fear, and can we actually have a different story about our fear, right? Of course, right? Some people, like, as we afraid of cockroach, for example, right? So
Right.
those fear are more instinct, like, and it's not like because I love certain things, but those type of fear a lot of the time is um, how we grew up. That is almost like a collective agreement that cockroach is bad and I should be afraid of it. Again, it might not be your original fear. It's just because everyone afraid of it, so we decided to, okay, I would, I would scream as well, right? So just to be collective. But have you actually, and I did that because it's like one thing is very interesting. And my aunt, like, she doesn't kill anything in her house, including cockroach,
Mm.
right? So we coexist with them. So whenever I go to her house, like, there will be cockroach walking onto her like desk, like on a dining table, and we're opposite, like we're sitting opposite of each other, right? At first, like, we was like, ah, cockroach, and then she's like, no, don't kill it, don't touch it, they do no harm. So I end up has to actually really sit there, and I look at the cockroach and say, you are so cute. And then you keep saying, you're very cute, you're very cute, you're not gonna harm me. But actually, they really don't harm you, because if you put your hand close to it, they run away anyways. And I somehow recondition myself Then now I see the cockroach. I say, "You're so cute." They say, "Hello." I say hi to it. So my point here is that, like, and this is my real real experience, but my point really is that any fear, right, which a lot of the time we don't think about why we react to it, but if we actually sit down and force ourselves to face the fear, we actually can, overcome it just by thinking it differently.
Yeah. It seems like it's more important to just be aware of like why you have that fear and the roots of that fear. And you bring up the point on two types of fear, which is instinct and collective fear, which is conditioned in you, and also fear because of love. So
Yeah.
could we dive deeper into like how someone can differentiate whether it is one or the other? Like, is there like a particular like process, or do you have like particular feelings that you've gone through with this?
Yeah, yeah. I would actually like, if it, from a process perspective, it definitely easier to go through the, I would say first see if that is root reason which is love related, right? Then if not, then maybe it's instinct, right? Because like for any fear, if kind of using my example earlier, I fear that I fail my test, and and that like and I was like, okay, why do I have that fear, right? And if you go down that path, right, some like usually it's like, oh, because I'm not going to get a good job, or like I can't go into the university. Why that is scary? Oh, because then I if I can, and I don't make good money, right? And I cannot take care of my parents. And then it's like, and then why is that worry? So, oh, then I will, disappointed my parents. You see, so it kind of easily, once you go down that path, you kind of go back to, oh, so why you feel disappointed of disappointed your parents? Because you love them, isn't it? So it's like, okay, so that one like a scenario, like it can easily kind of like, if you go deep enough, you probably will chase back to something that you love, right? Even though if you fear to losing something, right? You lose your favorite, you just got your iPhone 17 and you're afraid to lose it, right? Oh, right, because at the end of the day is that it's so important to you, that's why you're afraid to lose it. You might not, might not say you love your iPhone, but it's important to you, right? And that's something that is important, that is whole value in your life, and you're afraid to lose it, and that's the fear again, right? So there is always the flip side of fear, is something that you hold values of, right? Whether it's love or something that's important
Mhm.
to you, right? So if you go down that path and nothing happened, right? It's like, no, that's not it, and then you bring like, and then use the cockroach case for for the example, right? Like there's no way you can think of it because I love it and therefore I fear it, and then that's most likely, right? There's like, okay, then it fall into the second camp, which is probably like an instinct or just like social, like, and you can really like, okay, yeah, since I was young, everyone say don't touch it, like it's dirty. Like, you have to wash your dishes because it crawl over it. So we just like have this like conditioning saying that that is bad, and so you can also start saying, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand why I'm afraid of it. So is it true that it's very dirty, and this is true that it really harm us, right? So like, and what would be the worst case that could happen to us if they climb onto my hand, right? I think when I said that, it's probably people is already goosebump and run away, right? But that is the point, though. That so those reactions is a conditioning, right? So
Mm.
can we recondition ourselves? That's up to us, right? So I gave you the example of being in my aunt's house, that I have to, I didn't have a choice but recondition it, my own fear of cockroach. So yeah, so that's kind of how I can like see the, like I would go through the love deep dive, and then if the deep dive over there you don't find anything, then you like see you go through the conditioning deep dive.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, like, on your example on the cockroach one, Like a lot of the time, a lot of people they don't actually fear the cockroach, but then they fear the consequences of having a cockroach on their hand or on their body. But then because like they think that it's going to bring them a lot of pain or it does some kind of harm, right?
Yeah.
But then I guess like once you flip that around and you actually see that there's actually no harm with all of these like insects in general and these animal life, then
Yeah.
that can kind of recondition your fear as well.
Exactly, exactly. And I was like asking my aunt, right? It's like why won't you like afraid of them? I was like, no, they're just they are also sentient beings. They have feelings, then they are here. Like if you think about cockroach, is one of the strongest, almost the most resilient insect on Earth. And I actually did Google, and then you can chat GPT it too. Like if you actually find like what are the good characteristics like the of a cockroach, you actually find it. Wow, they actually are teachers. They are our teachers. Like how resilient they are, and then when you actually start to them understand their way of living, you start to appreciate them, right? And it's funny now that like if you like that's cockroach, right? Same for other animals, but same with people, right? Isn't that in as human, we very easily judge people. It's like, oh, I don't like this person. I'm afraid of this person. This person might, they look scary because they have full of tattoo, right? Like there is all this like conditioning fear that is so untrue. And you realize that once you get to know that person, that insect, that animal, you realize the beautiful side of them, and all of a sudden the fear goes away. And that's
Mm,
how I think that we, as we continue to awaken, continue to raise our consciousness, that becomes very important to be aware of our conditioning, right? And to be aware of the social norm that's no longer serve us, that we can rewrite the script by fully understand what that thing, what that person, what that concept really is. And that's applied to everything: small being, insect, human, even like a culture, right? A philosophy, everything.
mm. And tying this back to like the point on a lot of things collapsing, like no matter if it's like having a fire or if it's another chaotic event, like aliens coming in. I think a lot of the time we like looking at social media a lot, and I think social media does generate a lot of fear because all of these different like news outlets and all these different people are saying, oh my god, we got to start panicking, the world is collapsing, the earth is dying, and things like that. So how do we collectively prepare ourselves to face future chaotic events during this transition period?
Yeah. As an awakened being, first step, get off the news.
Yeah.
Get off as much social media as possible. And the reason is like social media has good and bad. Right? I would say that news is mostly bad nowadays because it was designed to drive fear in us, because fear um, is our natural reaction, and that's how they get eyeballs, they get views. So as a commercial outlet, news is no longer something that is pure, for us to consume, especially the mainstream news. So I would say get off news. That is very, very important. Doesn't mean that you become ignorant about the world, but has to be very mindful of how to curate, right, your information outlet. So that's first. So, but not just the mainstream news. Um, so that's number one, right? Then what we need to do next, right, is on the social media side is also to really be clear about like, okay, what like it's not even like it's so hard now, right? With AI and everything, and it's just hard to tell what's true, what's real, what's opinion, etc. Right? So the way I do it, actually, I think it's easier this way. The way I do it is like, okay, I know there's a fire. I know roughly what's going on, but then everything else I just kind of shut it off, right? Although like even I myself will get into the trap of sometimes you scroll like 2 minutes too long of scrolling, that it already I can see like I'm polluting like my the pure information, right? Until I aware 2 minutes later, okay, I'm still scrolling, I need to get off, right? So I myself also sucked into that. Yeah. But I think getting off the news outlets and the social media is so important nowadays, right? You get the basic know what's going on, and trust yourself. Actually, is like the other thing that is, if the news is important to you, it will come to you. You don't actually have to really seek for it,
Mm.
right? And news has just become like is a addiction to watching negative, is watching fear based stuff, is an addiction, is built inside us because how like the it's just how we are conditioned. So unconditioning that, like unlearn that part, is to remove all of them so you become very clean. It's like a full detox, information detox. Then from that you get the basic information, and then you go to, okay, how do I feel? So you spend more time to be aware of your feeling, expand, and then what can you learn from your own feelings. And yeah, and that's, I think, how is the really good first step, um, to uh, kind of remove yourself from all the what's going on out there, right? Because out there, in a lot of way, right, if we bring Buddhism and like a lot of like Eastern philosophy, right, out there is illusion, right? Is but it's real, right? It's as real because we can feel it, right? But it's an illusion that we can really feel, but the feeling is real, right? But also understanding that all this illusion, why is it happening collectively? There is because these are lessons for us to learn. The way I put it is like a video game. You know, if you think of a video game, and so it was already designed to have certain challenges for the avatar, right? So we are the avatar. We go in, we play the game, right? And we feel everything, right? We're in the game, we're playing it, and then there is situation. Okay, there is a fire, there is a collapse going on. What's going on, right? But each of these events in the game, they already programmed multiple scenario, isn't it? If you win, if you can beat this monster, right? This is one scenario. If you cannot beat this monster, you lose. Then that is another scenario, isn't it? That's how games, like video games, work.
Mm.
Right? The game designer have already designed multiple scenarios depending on how you play your game. We as an avatar, we do our best to play the best game. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, right? So then the news, right, and everything out there, basically, one person say the opinions that the this is what is going to happen to the world, right? And then player B say no, like that will happen. What will happen to the world? And then they have a debate, right? And then the thing is like, there's nothing to debate because if you go back to the game system, both are possible, right? It's all about how we play the game, and how I, Ryan, play the game and how Bosco, you play the game might be different, right? So we might have a different result, even though we are playing the same game. So therefore, it's very, very important. That's why if we keep listening to, if I am playing my character, but I'm keep listening to Bosco channels, right, that your character is like how your view are, right? So then if it's different, then I kind of like sucked into the other part of it, right? So So that is kind of what is like how I see, right, like for all everything that is going on, and also like all this possible outcome, right? And we step back, that should, like a video game is a very good analogy to think how we can think things in a kind of like multi-dimension perspective. That yes, you're right, you're right, you're right. Actually, all of you are right, but I'm right too, and I have the right to say that my journey might be different from all of you, and that is okay too.
Mhm.
With that, right? Then your fear will not, like, you don't have the fear to say, oh, I'm not belonging to this. I don't. I want to belong to some part. Right? That's another like major fear. I don't feel belonging, right? But it's like you don't have to, right? Because we all might have a different path and different outcome.
Yeah. This is very interesting. Like the point where you talked about trusting like the universe to give you all of the information. Actually, like when I think back to how I even knew about the fire, it was actually really funny because I'm not a news person, so I literally have like zero intake of social media news, like just completely cut. And then the first time someone mentioned the fire to me, I thought it was just like a normal fire. And it was only after like several days later, like another person mentioned the fire, and then someone else also did, and I was like, oh, maybe this is something bigger than what I thought. And then I searched it up. So it's just like
Yeah.
fascinating how like if anything important is here, then it will automatically come to you. Like you don't really need to go look for it. It's like just natural, right?
Exactly. And that natural news that come to you because it is important in some way. And for me, I'm the same way. I don't watch news. And how the news came to me was like that was like so every Wednesday I have a meditation session at night, and it was that morning, or like no, not even that morning, because it was a Wednesday and the fire happened on Wednesday. So it was probably in the evening time. The one of my friend called text me, right, and say, hey, can we do something, like do a prayer for the victims tonight? And I was like, what victims? And then she's like, did you watch the news? And that's how I watched the news as well.
Yeah. And like with this whole like fear concept, like one thing I've noticed is like once I stop fearing a lot and just start like just living in general, just actually accumulating like life experiences and stop like focusing on external events, like I find that time also passed by really slowly. I don't know if that's something that happens with you as well, but like like a lot of people, when we ask them like how's your month been, and they're like, oh my god, it's already 1 month, like it's already like 10 years have passed, right? But I feel like for me, like if you ask me like last month where I've been, it's like such a long recap of like different things that you've been doing every day. And I think, is that
Yeah.
something that you also face?
Yeah, I think it's that because what you're experiencing is you're consciously living your life. So you can recount your life very clearly, right? And of course, if you're the more conscious moment you're in, right, the more it's like, wow, actually, I did a lot of stuff, right? I did a lot of meaningful things that is important to my life. Versus if we stay in a fear-based mode, then you kind of like you just keep going through it. You scroll, all of a sudden 30 minutes it's gone, right? And then you talk to your friends about the same thing, another 2 hours gone, right? And then all of a sudden after 30 days, it's like, wait a minute, I'm fully consumed by some fear, and therefore I didn't do much, and it feels like time fried, isn't it? So that like logically like makes sense that would happen.
Yeah. And with regarding to another way to approach fear, I think you mentioned something really interesting in your book and also to me before, which is gratitude, which is something that I started practicing. Like just giving gratitude to what you have every single day, and just understanding that a lot of people have it like worse than you, and really you're a really lucky person like in this world. So the opposite of fear is abundance, right? So what does like an abundant mind look like?
Yeah, it's, like abundance is important, and but I think that I want to go from a more compassion way to think about this first, right?
Mm,
Because if, and we continue to use the fire as kind of a backdrop because it's in our, it's very much in our field right now. If you are the survivor that lost someone in this situation, it would be very, very hard to say, go have gratitude, right? Go have abundance
yeah.
mindset at that moment. But actually, but at the same time, the gratitude will start come very quickly, right? Because you can also see, right, the survivors, like, knowing there is a lot of people, the support, like, that's pouring into the community, the firefighter that's fighting in and out, like, for days. So there gratitude, maybe, yeah, some there, right? And then, but then also anger start to come in, like fear, like anger of, like, why this happened to me, right? This can be avoided, right? Fear comes in. What do I do with my life, right? There's, I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my loved ones. Right? What is life means to me, right? So it's not like we have to run away from fear and suppress it and say, no, now I need to be abundant. That's not possible, right?
It's always in you.
Yeah, like, and it's so real, like, you can, it's so real at this moment, right? So the thing is that the only things to get ourselves out of this fear is really to, I call it, you lean in to the fear instead of running away from it and run toward it. It's like, okay, fear, you are here, you are my teacher now. What am I here to learn? What is my life lesson? What do I need to learn from this? How do I, please help me, right? Like, if there is a god called fear, actually there is, right? If you look at, like, a lot of the archetype uh, in different religions, like, they have a very fierce, like, is a angry, it's like very scary
Mm.
looking
The
archetypes,
the
and
devils and
yeah,
the
and like
Krishna.
temples, exactly, right? Why? Because there is a reason that we need to face it head on, right? So I would say that, in, like, lean into that fear, and instead of, like, that is very scary, I turn this fear into an archetype, almost like a godlike archetype. And it's like, okay, fear, teach me, tell me, what am I here to learn? How can I transcend myself? Why this is so painful? What is this pain do for me? What am I here, right? So this is how I think we need to go through with the fear, to live with the fear and transcend the fear by going deep with it,
Mhm.
and not
Because
saying that that is against me. You know that this fear is for me.
yeah, because a lot of the times like these big life events, they must have some kind of learning, or there must be some kind of meaning to it, or else why would it happen to you?
Right, right. It's not a unfortunate, right? It is unfortunate, right? But deeper, it is not just unfortunate, because this unfortunate is a fortune, is a gift, is a bigger test for us to be, to evolve into a higher conscious being, right? And I would also, say that a lot of people that go through hardship, right, the harder, right, the scary, the tough stuff that is going on earth, right, is also because they are naturally a more advanced soul come onto earth to experience, to take a, I would say, like a tougher curriculum,
Mm.
right? So they are advanced soul, and we don't see, and we on the side that when we see this advanced soul suffering, so called, right? What we do is not to suffer with them. That actually lower their vibration. It actually giving them negative energy, right? But we actually should be cheer for them. It's like, thank you, advanced soul, that you are so brave to come to Earth to experience this, right? And your learning and your whatever you reveal and whatever you learn, right, it will benefit all of us because we are one, we are interconnected, right? So whatever they learn, we also get benefits from it, and therefore I cheer for you, right? I feel you, and I cheer for you. I don't like, and we can do this together. And I will, like, I pray for you. I send you blessing. I support you that way, right? But go figure it out, like, and thank you, this advanced soul, for to doing that for all of us.
Mhm. Yeah. This is really beautiful. Like another thing that I've seen on the news is also how like a lot of people they're coming together, right? They're supporting each other, like all of the taxi drivers giving each other, giving all of these survivors free rides, and all of these people donating food to like these homeless people, and that just makes me think of the concept of collaboration in general, right? Like the beauty
Mm-hmm.
of collaborating. And I think we're in an age where we're transitioning more out of competition because a lot of us were still mentally programmed to compete with one another, right? To get this status, get this rank, get this recognition, especially like when you're doing your college processes, like you're trying to compete for the spots rather than collaborating. So a lot of the time some people would like to like hide things from each other. And yeah, it's just an interesting phenomenon to talk about how competition also has fear involved within the competition, which is causing them to like, compete with one another. So could you further like elaborate on that point as well?
Absolutely. I think that compete, it is come from a fear, right? And it's like, it's the same, like, go back to the, like our ancestor, when
Mm.
I have to kill the animals for me to survive, right? It's back to the survival mindset, right? And now in the modern days, very few times we need to kill our competitor to survive. But it's very, very clear that no matter um, when we play sport, right, and when, like, what is sportsmanship, right? It is like we compete, we win, but why we win and have that competition in sport is to rise up together. It's not to make the other person worse. That is a very basic fundamental of sportsmanship, right? And in business, Coca-Cola actually said that before. It's like they appreciate Pepsi because without Pepsi, they won't, be as good as they are today, right? So competition actually creates a healthy um, rivalry for each other. But somehow, at some point, I don't know when, that start to happen. That a win lose is better than win win situation, right? And that is very scary, and especially in the age of AI. And you hear that, right? In some very important AI meeting with, like, all this American big company, right? And like for different countries, say, oh, like, one country must win this AI world, for example, right? Those comments, right, is like, it is not good for humanity, right? Because if you go down the path of this type of competition, right, it will create a um uh, a situation, right, where just people will try to go ahead at all costs, but not, and at the cost of humanity. And that is scary, right? Because in a collaborative world, there will be, I want to do it right for all humanity, not just US, not just China, not just one country, all humanity, including human, including all beings, right? That is, and the only way to do this is through collaboration, is through research together, rise together, right? No harm on anyone on this earth, right? So I think that is a fundamental shift that actually we must embrace. If we go down this competition path, right, we probably can see how AI will end. And that is probably not the path that we wanted to see. And so collectively, I think, why we do this podcast is also because we want as many people to be awakened, to consciously aware a lot of these choices. We can make our choice. We all of us have the full power, right, to decide, no, I want to be in a environment that is good for humanity, right? That is good for all of us. I think most of us, and I truly believe that most of us on Earth, right, live in love and harmony. Most of us on Earth live in, like, they don't want war. Like, who wants war? Right? Who
Mm.
wants uh, uh, like that? Like, is this hard truth of like competition that behind the scene. So yeah, it's hard. I think that, but if all of us, as many of us, can express and really make our choices, like through how we consume things, like what we decide to buy, how what we spend money on, this will kind of signal to people that are in power to say, okay, what do we want? Right? So it's not a, and I really fully think that this is not a, stand up, going out and protest type situation to say I demand collaboration. That's not how it works. Right? It's really through a deep knowingness that I choose collaboration, I choose love, and therefore I make conscious decision to consume, to act, and like on things that is aligned with that values. And when more of us just act in our community and we're with ourselves, align with these values, then your world in front of you will change.
Mhm. I think slowing down is a really big thing as well because with the world right now and with AI, everyone is just rushing to the next thing, and it seems like we're also pressured to do the same thing. Right? Especially like living in Hong Kong right now, like everyone is just so fast paced, right?
Yeah.
And
And sometimes if you think about it, what are they rushing to do? What? It feels like that, oh, I must learn it, and then, or therefore, I'm not competitive, isn't it? I need to learn all this, right? And so there is a lot of, like, if you go back to reason why people are rushing, again, back to, it's a fear based action. I afraid I will lose my job. I afraid I'm not, like, um, not gonna catch up. I afraid from a lot of things, right? So again, if we step back and, like you say, Bosco, right, slow down, what is important? Like, how do we want to do this together? Right? Is my action, also support the overall self? Right? If it's, especially if we start to have a fear-based action, that is very good time to slow down and think about how can I have action but not act on a fear-based decision, right? And that require sitting down. That require a transition, right? And this, during the transition, is a slow down period. It's just like a butterfly, right? When you transit um, from a caterpillar, and and you turn into a cocoon and into a butterfly. During the cocoon period, you just don't move. You just do nothing before you become a butterfly, right? And it's the same concept that most of us forget, right? How life work. and we just go, and we keep trying, like we're being the best caterpillar, right? And never try find the time to cocoon ourselves. So good luck being a best caterpillar when you could actually be a beautiful butterfly.
Mhm. Yeah, when you could be like a really nice butterfly and evolve
Yeah,
to like the next stage.
exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely sometimes very tough to just slow down, right? Like especially when everyone else is going so quick and you're like you're still having this fear. But and breathing's a really big one, right? Like breathing, taking deeper breaths, because a lot of the times we're not really breathing the right way. We're doing like shallow breaths because we're fearful of something, or we're not doing something aligned to us. But once we take like a
Yeah,
deeper breath, then like all of the sensations gets activated.
yeah, yeah. And if you do deep breath as many times as you can, like through a whole day, you can do deep breath. Imagine how grounded you are. Right? That's not how you feel when you see, when you walk by, you see some, like, what's the difference between someone that you walk through and it's like, wow, this person is so grounded, like it's magnificent type, right? And not too many words, but every word is very powerful, very impactful. It's deep breath. And they just focus on their breathing. They don't focus on the noise. They don't have fear. And they see things very clearly. And so that's why then therefore like their words become very impactful.
Mhm. And once we choose to pursue that collaboration path, we come to the point where we start to be interconnected, right? We all have
Mm,
unique aspects where we're individualized in certain areas, but then we're also not just solely building something, but then you're also connecting with other people. So could you just briefly define like what do you think is the boundaries between like someone who's being dependent versus someone who's being interdependent, where you're like connected with each other?
yeah. Well, absolutely, we are all interconnected. Like I said, it's a web of energy that we are all like together. It can't be separated, right?
Mm,
And I think that the way I describe the overlap, I don't know, have you seen a geometry kind of like the flower of life, right? Where you have all this circle, kind of like you have one circle and then you have another circle. Each circle have some overlap, right? But then it's not fully overlap, right? And then it continued, and then
mm,
you have many, like infinite number of circle, right? Basically, as many as possible. Like, so if you think of it, all of us, and go, let's zoom in to start with us and our parents, right? When we were in our um, mom's stomach, right, we fully overlap, right? And
yeah.
then as we born into a baby, we start to separate, but still quite a bit of overlap, isn't it? And we still relied on, you know, the milk, right? We rely on, like, we are fully dependent on our parents, right? And then as we grow, the overlap continue to go fewer and fewer, right? And some family, right, was like, well, some parents, like, they want, really have a strong will or wants their children to be certain type of person, or fulfill their dreams, the parents' dreams that they didn't have when they were young. Right? And then now we have all these resources, and therefore you must do X. Right? So the circle still quite overlap in those cases, right? Because the parents like kind of want this overlap to happen, right? But then there is the other situation where the parents might be like, I know, I just want here to nurture, like give the children a good environment, and you grow whatever, however you want to grow into yourself, the best self you can. Yeah. So in this case, like the way I describe it is more like a someone that we just have teach you how to do ABC, teach you how to tie your shoelace, right? Teach you all the basic life skill, right? Until to a certain point you can become independent, right? Then those, right, the circle is a lot like a fewer overlap, right? So with that, so imagine if in a society and in a, or consciousness where there is a lot of like let's say 70% overlap, so the evolution of the humanity is quite limited versus if the overlapped because everyone is just like I just give you the basic and then you can thrive, then your overlap, let's say, is only 10%, right? Then all of a sudden, your evolution of humanity, right, and consciousness expand way more, right? And that's kind of, I think, that how the interconnectedness work is like we need to be conscious about, right, how much of overlap, and is that overlap a good thing or bad thing, right? Or we don't know, but I think that for me, we always have to have some overlap, right? Because if it's no overlap, then the bubble kind of like they go on itself and it doesn't work, right? It needs some type, some chain effect, right? So, but then if as little overlap as possible, as long as you get you up and running, right? Then the bubble, evolve itself, and then the bubble will evolve itself. And I think that's kind of how I see interconnectedness, right, and collaboration, right? So us as rather you are a teacher or you're a mentor, your parents, a coach. I think all of us like have to become very aware of how are we creating, how are we optimizing like this life bubble that everyone that reach out, everyone that we interact with, right? To create, to give that environment um, for them, like for the for the life to thrive on their own, so that way they experience the life in the most fulfilling way, and that most fulfilling way, right, is the evolution of our whole humanity.
Mhm. And I was also thinking, like, does that also require, like, if right now you're in a really like dependent situation where like you're either in like a dependent relationship or you're in like a dependent business, like are you supposed to learn more about yourself first, like take that step to be independent, and then only then you can be like more interconnected and interdependent?
Yeah, exactly. Well, but I think there is like also two things to think about, right? Is that dependency because you are not independent enough, or is that because the other party create a situation where you force you to be dependent?
Mm.
You see, right? So yes, we continue to learn to be independent, but actually, I would say a lot of the time, right? We underestimate our ability, and then therefore we dependent on someone, right? But that is also a mindset that need to clear, right? To see, especially like I would say that unless you are like below, I don't know, if you're 18 and below, yes, the dependency in general is higher.
Yeah.
Even like once you finish high school, I think there is a lot of independency that can comes in, right? Then it's up to that you can make up your own mind, that you can, like, you would really know who you really need to start to think like, who am I and who am I not, right? Because the first 17, 18 years of dependency, right, it create a lot of who you are not, right? So start from there to kind of go from that caterpillar to cocoon. So stay in the cocoon mode, right? To really understand who you are and who you are not, right? And then you go again. You can go into this interdependency, right? Where not disrespectful, right, of our elderly, like parents, teachers that gave you that 10% of who you really are, because that is foundational, right? But we respect, right, the love that they give, right, that they give. and then but can truly become yourself. Um, so I think that is an important step to actually know what you are not, more than what you need to do to be independent.
Mhm. And I think we're also evolving into an era where we're less dependent on like the left brain in general, because a lot of the
Mm.
time we're mentally fixated right now with all of these fears and all of these projections. And we're moving to this interconnectedness of the left brain and also the right brain, where the right brain is more like meditative and more spiritual and like activating that inner feminine, as they say. So
Yeah,
what's the middle path? You know, what's the interconnectedness with like the left brain and the right brain, which is like the contemplation.
your heart. Actually, I would say that the brain in general, especially the logical brain, right, is a very outdated logic system that is use our mind and is the operating system of our ego. Right? Ego is not a bad thing. So, like I think in out there might be, people think ego is a bad term, but it's actually a very neutral term. Right? Ego is just like so that we have a sense of self, which is required in the game of life, in this 3D world, in this reality. Right? So we need this ego self to operate. But where how you really connect to and then that's very masculine, right? Like you mentioned, it's an action based, it's a method based, right? And the world has been reward this side of ours, of humanity a lot, right? And actually it's almost like highly dependent on our masculine side and the logic side, the method side of things. But the other side, what is going on in the back?
It's so funny. I just see like someone like coming right down.
It's washing my window.
Beautiful.
Anyways, but on the heart is actually when and as we go into this new period 9, right? Going into the heart is so important because heart actually is the portal, is the bridge to our soul. It is the feminine energy that comes in, that is, and it is something that was purposely suppressed in school and in the corporate world, if you think about it, right? Don't get so emotional. Yeah, put your emotion aside. Right? And even if we talk about emotional intelligence, it's not true emotional intelligence, because that that EQ, the so-called EQ in the business world, is to make sure that you suppress it so much so you can be very efficient and productive in your work. It's not to nurture or think about what you need to do, right? And how emotion teach you, right? And that is only the heart can do it, right? So the heart is the bridge to your soul, to our deeper learning. So I think that from going forward, I think it is very important that we spend time, and I am hoping a lot more education comes in that help students like go into the heart and work with our heart, work with our emotion, work with our fear, right? And not as in suppressing, but actually what can we learn from these emotions? And so, and then with the heart, right? Then it naturally go to the creativity, right? The creation, right? And that is what we really are, and as a human being, is to create. So I think, yeah, it's not only the left brain, right brain, but it's like the neutral point is going. Use the heart, like I used to say. Use your heart to think, and use your brain just to um, execute.
Mm, yeah. And talking about this point, like since you have also like previously like worked with different like corporate leaders, like could you just give us like a brief example of like any leaders who like integrate both areas of the brain, like both like the compassion and also like the logical driven, like how that looks like.
Yeah, I think the most uh, impactful memory, like it was, I was very early on in my career, probably a few years into my job, right? And that was like during the internet like craze, like kind of like now the AI craze. It was the internet craze, and same thing. A lot of like big like people hire so many people, and then you have to lay off a bunch of people. So it was in one of my first layoff experience that I have seen in the corporate culture, and I was like scared. I was like so scary, so sad, right? How company lay off people because you just like you could bring a group of people into a meeting room, and then you just announce to them that today is your last day, and then by the time you get out, you go to your desk, you pack your everything. You have to pack everything away same day, and then you put all the like computer out in the office, like at the on the floor, to signify that you are fully packed, and then security get you out of the door. So I witnessed. So I was a junior like analyst at that time. I wasn't impacted, but I was seeing how other people was being like treated, and I was it was tough. Then I saw someone coming out from my manager's office, and she was crying because she was impacted. But then she gave my manager a hug, and it was a long hug, not just like a pat on the shoulder type hug. It was a long hug, and I was like, wow. On one hand, I saw on the left side, it's all this like sadness going on, like this inhumane way of treating someone that served the company for many years, right? On the other side of the corner, I saw this person also got laid off, but she's hugging the person who told her about the layoff. Right? So after that, like I was like asking my boss, like, what did he say to her? Like, why? And that is first time I know what like compassionate like leadership looks like, right? Is how it's the same news that you deliver to someone, but you can be very compassionate about like and be very understand of the situation, right? And I think that boss until now, right? I still have close contact with him, right? And I think my leadership, like a lot of it is, grounded by his compassion. So yeah, I forever grateful. But that is what I see is when you treat a human to human, right? Even business involved, but when it comes to human, like and the impacting their life, there is a very good way to express, right, and to handle it, right, that is beyond the business protocol, right? That hub, I would say, probably HR will say no. You know,
Mm.
the business protocol will say don't do that. You just be stern. This is the message. This is what you do, right? But sometimes we do prick the protocol because that's the right thing for human. That is compassion.
Yeah, I'm just taking some time to absorb that moment because I think that was a beautiful story. I think there was also this quote which I think you wrote in your book as well, which was from Breen Brown. I think it was like vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage.
Yeah,
And it's really coming to a point where, people are starting to be more authentic and really showing one's weakness isn't really a negative thing, but it really can be powerful, right? Because you're connecting in like a human level and like a very deeper level.
yeah, and I think I really appreciate Bernie Brown's that she talked about vulnerability for quite a few years now, right? But I think that she very advocate this particular point on leadership is like the tough, right? The throwing stuff across, like when I was young, right? Like the tough boss like is there, like you're throwing stuff across the table, like yelling at people, right? Those era, like I think there's those era exist like for a reason. We learn from it, right? But this era, it is about vulnerability. It is about the feminine energy. It is about being authentic. It is about right being who we fully are, right? And supporting each other, collaborate with each other, like, and lift each other up to um, humanity for all humanity, and not just even one group of humanity, right? And I think we are also moving away, right, from even the concept of you versus me, right, the Westerner versus Eastern, like all this. I think that we are moving into a way where um, we all see the same truth. We all see the want the same love, and we all know what's good for humanity, right? And the system has to catch up.
Hmm. Yeah. I think wrapping this podcast up, we talked about a lot of amazing concepts. Like we went from talking about like the environmental collapse with the fires, from talking about like the fear of that, to talking about like the collaboration with all of these empathetical people around the world, and talking about interconnectedness at the end. And my greatest takeaway with all of these was how it's so important to do our own part first, which means that we need to learn about ourselves before we can actually fully love others, because we're at a point where a lot of us, we don't even have the self-love, which is why we're projecting these negative feelings, these fears on to the world and onto others. So we need to take a step back and do a lot more breathing, do a lot more contemplation, and just really think about who this self is and what you really want to project in the world, right? Project through love. So that was my biggest takeaway. So Ryan, I was wondering, what was your biggest takeaway from this?
Yeah, no, you summarize it beautifully, and I think that is so true in around the self love, right? We always try to fix other in order to fix ourselves, and we
Mm,
need to flip the script. There is nothing to fix outside. The only things, if you only have energy to fix one thing, like, and I wouldn't even call it fix, right? Because we are actually a full, complete, and beautiful being. We just forgot about it. And so, what we need to do is just to remember who you are, who you truly are, who you're, the beautiful soul within you. What is your soul, right? What have your soul been doing recently? What did your spirit say about yourself? Once you go into that, you don't need to fix everything outside, right? You will understand that outside is a manifestation of within, of what you have within you, right? So once you clear, once you find your beautiful soul and live that beautiful soul, everything's around you will change accordingly without fixing a thing. That's the beauty of it.
awesome. Again, Ryan, I really appreciate all of the stuff that we talk about in this podcast. Another amazing episode. And to anyone listening out there, really bless you and best of luck with everything. And we're really supporting you from Hong Kong here.
Thank you, Bosco. Amazing, right? And always a lot of good questions, a lot of deep questions. I think your community, is really lucky to have someone like you, right, to leading the way to this awakened journey. And I'm happy to be here, right, to have this little overlap that we talked about, right? But and from that, like, and then you guys can shine as much as you can, be your full beautiful soul.
Awesome.
So thank you,
Well,
Bosco.
and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace
All
out.
right, peace.